Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bell. Jimbo, welcome back to the podcast.
I was in a meeting on Monday night with 12 other people, and we had to do the round table introduction thing, and I introduced myself, and then someone else cut in and said, no, your introduction is the sexiest voice in triathlon.
I mean, they're not incorrect, are they?
I had to step in at that point and say, look, just to be clear with everybody, who people I don't know, I didn't give myself that.
Disappointing, mate. I would be being like, yeah, it's true. Can't you hear? I mean, our listeners can obviously hear, mate, because it's one of the we get it, mate. You're on it. You're absolutely correct. James Bell is the sexiest voice in triathlon. It is not up for debate, Jimbo. I'm going to put. I want this on your tombstone, James Bale, the sexiest voice in triathlon. This is your brand, mate.
Just hopefully not too soon. Anyway, mate, I am well. I'm well. We're edging closer and closer to some very exciting racing that's going to be taking place. I mean, we've
really,
got, yeah,
Arena Games.
Yeah, the Arena Games. Well, the Arena Games is going to be better this weekend, I think. I'm buoyed up, mate. How are you?
Also very, very excited, mate. It is getting tantalizingly close to I jump on that plane to America, which I'm really excited for. To be my first time in a major race since 2019, so I'm pumped for that.
Is that final COVID test playing on your mind? It is mine.
Big time.
Daily.
Oh, mate, stress, mate. Oh, yeah. Mate, every time I get a little sniffle, I'm like, no, it's me. I've got the spicy cough. But no, it's
within the last 24 hours. You know, you've got to pass a COVID test within the last 24 hours. It would just game over the whole thing.
What I'm curious about with that 24 hours, is it 24 hours from your departure time or 24 hours when you land? Because for me...
No, it's departure time. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's planned departure time. If there's a delay, you don't have to worry about it because it's 24 hours before your planned departure time. I do my research, mate.
I don't, because I've got you. I've got the sexiest voice in triathlon to do it for me. But you're correct. We are going to be coming in hot to St. George. We've already started securing some guests, working out the logistics. We've got our mobile recording studio set up. It'll probably, I think we were saying before, we're probably not going to do as many video episodes in St. George because, again, we're going to be mobile. We're going to be out and about. We're going to grab the interviews when we can. But we will still probably do the weekly one-off, big one, a couple of days before the race video. We might have some guests. We're not sure for that one, but then we'll put out little bits and pieces.
Insta stories kicking about as well throughout the week, weren't there, with various people that we meet on our travels and various places we see. So keep an eye across all the socials, really.
Do you think we should take the recording equipment out in Vegas and just interview people about their thoughts on the Ironman World Championships? Hey, so who's your pick? And they're like, who? What? What do you think Alistair Brandon's going to do?
It's the last day of CinemaCon. The day that we arrive, isn't it? So
what's this?
It's like the biggest cinema convention in the US.
I'm getting tickets.
I think
I'm gonna go get tickets for that. There we go.
I think it ends on the Saturday. I'm not sure.
I get there early enough that I could probably still make I'll line up and see. I don't know how that's.
Yeah, so we could go to CinemaCon and just talk triathlon, see how well that goes down.
Man, I can. My other thing is I could easily talk about movies as much as I do talk about triathlon, but we do talk about on this triathlon. We do talk about triathlon on this podcast, James Bell, because this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, what's something you like about the aforementioned MX Endurance?
Well, at the moment, mate, it's the excitement and the conversation that's happening in the group because, you know, the members really start to come alive when there's stuff happening within the pro triathlon world and within the triathlon world itself in general. And with St. George coming in so close, we've got the Arena Games this weekend. Plus, there's a lot of talk about the sub-7, sub-8 within the group at the moment. And, I think the best thing for me about MX Endurance is the conversations aren't the run-of-the-mill stuff. You know, people are asking us our opinions on what we think about the pros and how they handle social media and how whether their content is, detracting from their athletic endeavors. And we have some interesting, insightful conversations in the group, mate.
Speaking of insightful and interesting conversations, something I would like to, and I know we normally save this stuff for the downline of the PTO later on the show for the people who tune out before we get to that part. But I saw the PTO put up a post this week and I wanted to have a bit of a chat around it. It was about looking for hot triathlon takes or what's your controversial opinions about triathlon. I know we tried to do a podcast on it once and you were like, nope, I'm not giving any controversial opinions because I'm a massive nerd. But one of the things I saw on it, I saw two people, and again, I saw two people who were saying that they think that the sub 7, sub 8 is overhyped or over underwhelming or not a good idea. And I saw the age old thing that came up again where because of the draft and it goes against the spirit of the sport and where same old shit. Like, what are your thoughts around the same? Like, let's talk about the drafting thing a little bit. I know this is a very different flow to how we normally do the episode. And I've weirdly piggybacked it because I think you're talking about the positive conversations at MX. I saw it. I just was like, fuck's sake, are we still talking about this thing? Are we still at a point in time where this sport is where we have an event like Sub 7, which is clearly trying to take the sport in a new direction. And you've got these group of people going, oh, I'm sorry, but this goes against the spirit of the sport and I don't believe in it because I'm a purist. Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we've discussed this a few times over the
Let's go again.
Go again. No, I think it's important to hold on to the spirit and the basis of a sport. But it's also very important to be able to adapt and be agile to...
Is draft in the spirit of the sport?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I mean, drafting's very much part of triathlon in certain races. But look, I think you've got to be open to new things. But you've also, in this instance, you've got to be able to separate as an audience member what sub 7, sub 8 is away from your own endeavors, if you know what I mean. It's not degrading or taking away from what you've achieved, because it ain't like
I get it.
If someone off the street is coming in and doing an Ironman with a draft, and then that they then can't boast to their friends and family that they did a certain time. This is very much its own entity, and it's a case of the drafting is going to be a challenge in itself. I've been in meetings very recently with groups of pacers for certain athletes talking about how they're going to strategize this thing. And it ain't easy. It ain't a case of, oh, there's a drafting unit that you sit behind. Jobs are good. And, you've got to talk about how people are slotting in and out, what the best way to slot in and out is, how hard it is to stay on a wheel, a static wheel in front of the rider, and not static wheel in front of the rider, echelons, side winds, whether you're going to go for different shapes or different sizes. The drafting is going to be a challenge in itself. So though I think the problem people have is that they see a race like this, they see a challenge like this, and then they think, well, if I did a drafted race, it wouldn't count. And then they get angry about it.
Yeah. I think that's what one of the things I've spoken about is another podcast that we both listen to about movies is they say that there's that idea where if a person can't visualize themselves doing something, they therefore dislike it. And I think that's sort of what this comes down to again, as well, isn't like, because if I did it, it wouldn't count, or it wouldn't be whatever, or because I can't do it, it's therefore a bad thing.
And also I think people worry that within triathlon the comparison between age group and pro is very aligned. You're always comparing yourself to what the pros are doing, and if someone goes out and does this with a draft and in this particular setup, then that makes it, that distance between what you've achieved and what the pros achieved, even greater. And people and then think about it and then get angry again because they're like, those pros
I'm so much further away from that.
Yeah, I'm just a bit further away now. But I think the challenge of the sub 7, sub 8 is more than just the individual athlete. The challenge is the event itself, and all it takes is a wheel in the wrong place, or someone slotting in and out that pace line in the wrong place, and the whole group goes down. This is not going to be just a very simple exercise that you could, me and you, for example, couldn't rock up on the day and sit in that pace line and do a good job.
Do you think because one of the things we discussed probably a year ago was about having team like a draft legal triathlon racing based around a team concept similar to a pro cycling, the sport that I know the most about in the world. Do you think that maybe there's a potential that after the sub 7, if they see that the time's crazy fast and it's exciting, do you think that there is the potential for a brand, let's not name names, who might go, or an organization might go, fuck, there's something to this draft legal triathlon, right? Like this was exciting. They rode fast and then they got off the bike and they were like it was a run battle, like a proper run battle. Do you think it could lead to maybe a change in the way things are done?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, as the world's biggest cycling fan, I assume you know what the Hammer Series is, do you?
Of course, mate. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I've forgotten more than I know about it, to be honest.
It's, I mean, they kind of did that in pro cycling where they've got these team events now where the teams race against each other. I know that all pro cycling is teams racing against each other, but this is in a sort of in a format that as like almost like a Super League type format where you've got different styles of events, pursuits, all that happening in these sort of small arena type places and the teams taking chunks out of each other. And it's really exciting. Now, it would be quite cool if you did that in triathlon where you had teams coming together and maybe even, in a sort of, if you did it in a Super League-y type way, but bigger and perhaps longer distances, and you had national teams working together, I don't know, whatever, however you want to put the teams together, couples.
Let me pick. I want to be the boss of triathlon who picks how the teams are put together.
So you had these teams that are formed, probably, like you say, not on national teams, because World Triathlon would have to be involved then, and they'd fuck it up. So
no, thank you.
We'll go for teams that are selected by the event based on rankings or whatever. And then you could have it even where they're racing against each other, and there isn't like who's the leader, who are they trying to get to win, who are they working for? It'd be an interesting dynamic to see that take place. And I think that could be really exciting, especially if it's done in a small area where you've got an arena and a crowd. Game up for that, mate.
Well, let's stick on the sub thing because the first piece of news this week, mate, that was a very long segue. Maybe that was my plan all along. Who knows? You will never find out. I'll never admit it. The first piece of news this week comes from Try Today from Rumi Louise von Schoenveld. It says, Brownlee on sub 7. We don't want the pesky Norwegians finding out what we're doing. While Britain's Kat Matthews took the place of fellow Brit Lucy Charles in the women's project sub 8. For sub 7, it's still Britain's Alistair Brownlee and Norway's Christian Bloomfield, who are all in to try to make the impossible possible on June 5th. But Brownlee tries to keep things as much a secret as he can. He shares some insights on a recent Phoenix video, which you can find on their social media channels, like how to pace and be aerodynamic in a group on a TT bike. In his build-up towards the sub 7 attempt, he said, I keep it all as confidential as we can, as we kind of can in the real world, because we don't want those pesky Norwegians finding out exactly what we're doing. Jimbo, these pesky Norwegians.
This. I saw this on the social channel. It was released. I like it, man. Pesky is the word, isn't it? It's a good word. I like it.
It's very British. It's very British. I can imagine him sitting there with his monocle being like, looking down, going, those pesky Norwegians.
I am hoping upon hope that this is a real, honest race. And we don't have one of these, Alistair Brownlee or Christian Bloomfield, just going ahead from the other. I want to see shoulder to shoulder on this. Because I don't know. I go backwards and forwards on it, mate. 1 minute I'm thinking that Christian Blumenfeld's just gonna wipe the floor,
do his
thing.
Then
I think, but then I think, well, it's Alistair Brownlee, isn't it? You can't neglect that. And I love to see the little bit of needle coming out on socials. I really do. It's fun.
Do you know, it's funny because one of the things we sort of have, we spoke about it last week, and there's been a lot of coverage around the Joe Skipper Christian thing, the hype train and stuff, and I think I've said this before. It's all I seem to do on this podcast is repeat myself. But to me, Christian Blumenfeld is the modern day short course Alistair Brownlee of 10 years ago, because Christian seems to be the guy in the group in a WTS race screaming at the other guys, fucking let's go, let's attack. Like he's the one always pushing the pace, much like Alistair Brownlee. And for some reason, I'm thinking like Alistair Brownlee versus Christian Blumenfeld has the potential to be a real rivalry, because I think they're quite similar athletes in the sense that they like to lead, they don't sit back, they like to dictate the race, they like to attack, they like to push. Like we've spoken about since Kat's come in to replace Lucy that the women's race is quite similar. And the more I look at this, I'm thinking this men's race, I mean, Christian doesn't have the same swimmer's alley, but their biking and running styles are similar. Like they're both very aggressive races, and with St. George, those two racing each other, then Sub racing each other, and then Kona racing each other. It's suddenly like, this is a narrative that I can really start to get behind, because we've got two very forthright, they're not afraid to speak their mind. They're not afraid to put it out there and say what they're going to do. Like, that's exciting to me.
Oh, totally. And, yes, Brownlee might come out of the water just before Christian in this. But I can't see the bike groups not coming together on the road unless Alistair has got some plan in terms of a team time trial unit to whip out on.
You think
on the
Christian's a
day.
better bike rider than Ali?
No, I don't think he's particularly better, but I just can't see one bike group not being able to catch another.
How come? If they've both got the same advantages, so therefore they're able to go the same speed, and say Ali's got a 2 or 3 minute, let's say 3-4 minute, maybe even more gap on him out of the water.
Yeah, you're right. They may not come together. I wasn't expecting the swim gap to be that big. I was thinking it would be more because of the pacer element. I'm expecting it to be more than like a minute.
Really, like, interesting. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And so I was expecting more, a little bit of an advantage on the bike, but ultimately it's sort of on as even going into the run, and then a shoulder to shoulder run battle. That's what I want to see.
I'd back Christian for the run. That's the thing. Like, if it came down to the run, I'd back Christian, but I think it's going to be a bigger gap out of the water, and I think Ali's going to probably maybe even put time into Christian on the bike. Maybe, I don't know. So
yeah, maybe.
I don't know,
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Alistair Brownlee being from the being a Brit. We have a time trialing history over here, mate. It's what we do, and if he puts together the sort of time trialing unit that I would probably put together if I was him, then there's a good chance he could just have some of the best time trialists just rotating in and out. And if Christian Bloomfield turns up with a bunch of triathletes, mate, on that bike,
what if he got some British time trialists though?
I don't know. Look, Blumenfeld's gone from, what was it? A few months ago, we were discussing he just wanted to be on the bike on his own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just can't see him going from that.
He's just going to do the whole thing himself. He's not going to have paces. It's just Christian Blumenfeld solo.
Yeah, I can't see him going from the idea. If you start from wanting to do the bike on your own, you're so far behind. You're so far away from a well-drilled time trial unit that I can't see him having gone from there to there in that period of time. He's going to turn up with Gustav and a few other triathlon mates and be like, oh, yeah, maybe a time trial. Let's see what happens. I don't know, man. I just can't see it.
But let's not look at just the sub-event. I'm talking more like...
And we all know triathletes can't handle bikes for shit.
That's true. St. George, though. Anyway. It's good. It's good to see that there is a little bit of... they're aware of each other. I think that's what I like. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in St. George, I think. That's now... For me, that's very much the... I think Christian came out and said it's either going to be Gustav, Christian, or Jan. He's like, just not even considering Ali. And Ali would have heard that and been like...
Oh, of course. And St. George is going to be a real key indicator for this, isn't it? I just hope that Alistair Brownlee isn't fragile on the sub-7. I want to see what he can do at his best, win or lose. I don't want to see him having to pull up because he's broken. Something that's gone twing.
Me neither, mate. Me neither. No. I don't think anybody does. I just don't want to see... I just want to see him actually race at his potential because I'm sick of everybody going, he's just not quite got it at long course. Yes, he has.
Yeah.
All right, next article comes from Tri247, Jonathan Turner. You put this one on the doc, Jimbo. That Sebastian Kienle is out to surprise himself one last time in 2022. Do you want to take this one, or would you like?
Yeah, I will. I'll take this one because it's an excerpt from a much longer interview, which is on the Tri247 website. It should go and check it out because it's enthralling. But this is just because St. George is coming up. Kienle knows he's not expected to win a second Ironman World Championships in either St. George next month or Kona in October, but that does not mean he's going in as a no-hoper. Talking to six-time Kona king Mark Allen on his regular Mondays with Mark Allen series, Sebi said of his hopes for the year, first of all, to finish both the World Championship races in St. George and Kona. That would already be good. And then just still to be competitive. It's also, for me, very difficult because in the last few years, nobody raced a lot. I dropped out in Roth. I just dropped out 2 times in my career. It was Hawaii in 2018 and then Roth last year. I had an okay race in South Africa, but the level of uncertainty is really big. I know, obviously, I'm in good shape and everything looks all right, but what does it mean in a competition? I don't know. It would be great to just be in the mix and have a chance. You know, these races are crazy, but a lot of things can happen. Therefore, I know I'm not going into the race as one of the favourites. But if I was able to surprise myself one last time in my career at one of those races, that would be awesome. And I love this attitude, mate, because it's kind of like got that sort of, one more
I've
job
got
kind
nothing
of.
to lose
Yeah, exactly. Just
except the race.
I'm retiring at the end of the month, so here we
End of the
go.
year.
And I would love to see Keenlay have a last dance at one of these World Championships
Is he
races.
podium potential?
I think, if I'm honest, the surprise himself last dance would be the podium. I cannot see in his mind that surprise himself means win.
Yeah.
I think the surprise for him would be to be on the podium. I don't think he's one of the favourites for the podium, but you never know.
If he was on the podium, would you be surprised? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I would.
If he won it, would you be surprised? I mean, yes, obviously.
Fucking floored, yeah. but stranger things have happened, and it would be tremendous. I don't even want to go down that road because it sounds like I'm talking about something that as if I think it could happen when I know it can't.
Just go down the road anyway, mate. Who cares?
Yeah,
Throw caution to the wind, baby. Let's do it. Come on.
If he won, it'd be an emotional win, wouldn't it? Because he's announced his retirement. He said he's having this final year of quite serious racing. Then he's going to go and do some fun races, and he's a great bloke. He's a great bloke, and mate, I can listen to him talk forever. I love his voice.
Get him back on the podcast, Jimbo. There we go. That's what
I'll do my best. Yeah, I've actually sent him an email the other day, bro.
Oh, did you? I mean, I'll talk to his agent, Ronnie, so I'll try to line that up too. Yeah, no, I like it. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Sebi was on the podium, to be honest. Like, I think Sebi is one of those athletes that he's always in the conversation. Like, I don't think he'll win it. But again, if he did, I wouldn't be like, where the fuck did that come from? Jesus Christ. I'd be like, no, Sebastian Kienle. Like, he's at that sort of level. Like, I wouldn't have considered him a podium in 2019. Again, it's weird talking about a race that was literally almost 3 years ago, but it's the last thing we have to compare to.
The last one we had, yeah.
I wasn't really expecting him to be on that podium, and he was. Just like I wasn't expecting Tim O'Donnell to be on that podium, and he was. So, yeah, mate, that's the thing with these one-day championships, isn't it? That, as Sebi says, Christian could have a mechanical. We've seen Christian have a lot of mechanicals lately. I hope that's not going to happen. And then, somebody could have a bike crash, like you said, at sub. Like, there's so many factors other than pure performance in this event that could play a factor. So, who knows, mate? Who knows? Jimbo, last week we didn't really talk about these Super League Triathlon Arena Games, and I'd moved on with my life. I was like, that's behind me. Hopefully the next one is better. Hopefully I'll be more excited about it. And then I was checking the local news, Channel 7 News, which is one of the local news stations here. And what do I see? I see triathlon news on the local news. I'm like, that's what's going on here. So I thought, let's pull the article out and we'll talk about it on the podcast, because obviously we missed something from the Drama Field Arena Games last 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. And this is from Joey Riordan at 7 News, and it's Olympian Petra Kurakova cops a cruel disqualification at the Arena Games for spitting. Czech triathlete Petra Kurakova has been left devastated after she was disqualified at the Arena Games triathlon in Munich for spitting on the ground. The star athlete, who finished 30th in the women's triathlon at the Tokyo Olympics, was preparing for the swim leg of the second heat of the event when the cruel turn of events unfolded. While holding a 6-second advantage over her opponents and preparing to jump in the water, Kurakova turned and spat on the ground in full view of a world triathlon official. The official then promptly presented her a red card, disqualifying her from the heat and ruining her chances of advancing to the final stages. Of course, that is against the rules, and she was extremely upset, the commentator said. I believe the commentator was either Will or Macca. And why not? She was 6 seconds to the good at that point, and then she was gone, and that just left the 5 athletes battling it out for 3 qualification spots. It wouldn't be Super League without it, just a little bit of controversy. Moments later, Kurakova was seen crying as she struggled to process the decision before she approached the head referee for further explanation. She later took to social media to thank her fans for their support and take a swipe at the DQ decision, describing spitting as a natural reaction for sports people. At first, thank you for all the nice words from your athletes around the world for whom spitting is a natural reaction for sport, she said. I'm sorry for that I didn't spit extra to someone I did nearby and not during the race. What do you think about the theme spitting during the sports? I still can take some positives from the race. It shows me I'm in a good way. Some days the hard work will pay off. Jimbo, controversy at Super League Arena Games, mate, and we bloody missed it.
What does I am sorry for that I didn't spit extra to someone mean?
She probably wanted to spit in their face or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's a bit... I mean, look, you break a rule, you break a rule. And it's up to the athlete to know the rule. This article, is this a local article as well? Is
It,
this? Yeah,
it's just
I don't
one
know.
of
It just
Australia's biggest news channels.
sounds like a cruel turn of events. Is a strange way to phrase something that
Star
an
athlete,
athlete,
30th at the
yeah,
Olympics.
an athlete has done to themselves. Look, it's up to the athlete to know the rules, and if you're not allowed to spit on the ground, then you should know that. And if you're going to get DQ'd, then chin up. Basically, I don't think that the reaction is as needed as it should have been. Like just
I don't know what you're
it
saying. Say it.
happened.
Be clear. Use your words, mate. Come on.
You use my words.
Be
I'm
clear.
lost. I think I am sorry for that. I didn't spit extra to someone. I did it nearby, not during the race. I just think, well,
I think
look,
during
mate.
the race it's okay to spit. Hey, like I don't think anybody's going
Yeah.
to get you if you're running and you spit.
No.
Spit. I do that all the time. It's disgusting. I get so many looks because of COVID. Where people are like, "Oh, mate, stop that." No, I can't.
I
don't mean to.
I think it happened, and chin up. You got disqualified. Learn from it and do better next time. What are your thoughts on it? Do you have anything more controversial than that?
No, she should be disqualified, mate. Like, there's,
Yeah, there
he's
you
doing
go.
it right in front of an official. What are you thinking? Like, at least try to be a bit strategic. Like, as you dive in the water, have a bit of a, or I don't know, something. But don't just be like, "Hey, official,
water, I don't know.
What are you going to do about it? Hey, like, come at me." He's like, "I'm going to disqualify you." That's what I'm going to do. Or what do you? I mean, the thing about needing to know the rules, I'm guilty, and I'm sure most of our listeners are too. Like, I don't know every rule in triathlon, mate.
No.
I could be out there and be like, "I didn't know."
Do you earn your living from it?
No, that's a good point. Yeah, okay.
For the job you do that pays your wages, that pays your mortgage, that looks after.
We don't know every rule for that either, mate. To be honest,
it's important that you. Yeah, this is true. It's important that you know what you're doing and what can and can't impact that. Because if you're in the lead of the race and you're 6 seconds to the good and you're looking like you might get yourself a payday, then doing something that is going to jeopardize that is silly, to say the least.
You've got a payday? Probably not. Beth Potter won by absolute minutes. So
yeah, I don't know where she would have finished. This was a heat. I assume this was a heat. If it wasn't a heat, then Beth Potter would have been ahead. So so yeah, she may have got herself a payday because Beth Potter is one person, and the Super League pays quite deep.
You wouldn't know it based on the start lists. This next one I thought I'd put in, just again, being the biggest cycling fan in the world, I thought I would actually try to find a way to cross over my love of cycling, my incredibly deep knowledge of cycling with my love of triathlon. And I was very delighted to see that the guys at Try Today, Romy, Louise von Schoenveld again, put this little treasure together. And that's that pro triathlete Cam Worth, you might have heard of him, Jimbo, helps cyclist Dylan van Baal to victory at the Paris-Roubaix race. Now, I may be a big cycling fan, but I'm not always that good with the pronunciation. Have I butchered his name?
Dylan van Baal? No, you nailed that.
That was close. Perfect.
It's the Paris-Roubaix weekend has just happened. It was the women's race on the Saturday and the men's race on the Sunday. Elisa Longo Borghini won the women's race and Dylan van Baal won the men's race. So
that's correct as well.
It's really good to see Cameron Worth. I'm surprised. Cameron Worth is a fantastic cyclist. He's brilliant, and he's a brilliant triathlete as well. But I was surprised to see him racing Paris-Roubaix, not because he can't and not because he hasn't got the ability, but because it's a race of such attrition and crashes and punches and cobbles and dust and people falling off that it's so high risk for injury. I thought an athlete like Cameron Worth that was balancing triathlon and pro cycling would avoid this cobble classic in particular. But mate, kudos that he didn't. And like he said on Instagram, I can't believe they let a triathlete lead them onto the cobblestone section is pretty. I love that quote because, as I said, I jokingly said earlier, triathletes can't handle bikes for shit. And Cam Worth is showing that they can, but he was a cyclist before he was a triathlete. So he's a pro cyclist anyway. So, he's a great representative to have from triathlon, still showing that he's got the skills in the pro peloton.
Can I ask you to then gaze into your crystal ball, which by that I mean look in the shine of your forehead, and tell me, does Cam Worth doing this race signal to you that he will not be in St. George?
No, I think no, No, I don't think so. I think there's enough time between Roubaix and St George to recover. I do genuinely think it was a risk in terms of injury riding Paris-Roubaix, but if he's got the numbers, then a team like Ineos aren't going to particularly, well, depending on what's in his contract. I don't know what he's contracted to do for them, what he's contracted, how that balance is, but if they needed him there to help a cyclist like Dylan van Baarle go for the win, then he was going to be there. I thought they were all working for Filippo Ganna to begin with, as did you, I'm sure.
No, to be honest, mate, I wasn't surprised by this. I did a lot of research and I spoke to my people, and basically unfolded the way I expected it to. So
yeah, because how many Paris-Roubaix has Ineos and Team Sky won now? Is this their third or fourth?
oh mate, I can tell you what, they all blend into one. I'm just, I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
about the victories. I think about the moments, and
Oh, okay.
I don't qualify them that way. I mean, when your
Oh,
knowledge
okay.
is as extensive as mine, like I
Yeah.
said, it's hard to keep
Well,
track,
this
mate. It's those moments. It's those moments that I
since
remember.
since the inception in 2010, Team Sky to Ineos, it's the first time they've won the Cobble Classic Roubaix. So I
It's true.
genuinely thought they were going to be working for Ghana, but Ghana had some bad luck, too many punches, too many issues through the race.
No, I wasn't surprised, mate. Again, I'd seen that there was just there was enough little things. I was like, no, I'm not thinking it today. So glad to see
but it
that
was it
that
was
expert knowledge.
the fastest running of Paris Roubaix ever.
It's
It
carnage
was a
too. Some of the
very,
footage.
very, yeah, man, very dry, very dusty day. So
Mm.
they weren't messing around, and it was. I was happy to see it. At one point, I thought Wout van Aert was going to bring his little chase scoop back up, and they got within
Easy mistake to make,
20,
mate. To be
20,
honest.
20, 20 odd seconds. And it was a good race. The women's race was fantastic as well. And it's the second year that they've had the women's Paris-Roubaix. And you mean, like I said last year, it's been a long time coming before we get to that point. We're finally there, and I love the fact that this year they had it on a different day because it makes a real weekend of it, as
Yeah.
opposed to an addition to the men's race. You got the women's Saturday and the men's Sunday, and great work by all.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for enlightening our audience, mate. I like you to, get the opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge too, because it must be tough being acknowledged as the second biggest cycling
Deferring
fan
to
on
you
this podcast.
constantly, Tim Ford, is difficult, but it's a running theme in my life,
I mean,
so I've come to terms with it.
I'm glad, mate. I'm glad.
Yeah,
But again, people know that when it comes to cycling, numero uno. So that's how it should be.
yeah.
I've heard that, mate. You're the sexiest voice in triathlon. I'm the world's #1 cycling fan.
You wait till I dance away from you up those climbs in St George, mate. You'll know who's number one then.
Oh, mate, I'm gonna bring so much pain now. You do not know what you have just done. You see that incredibly light Amonda behind me, mate? That thing that's
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
with me to St George. Oof, mate, that thing pedals itself up the mountains.
yeah. Oh, it was an
In
e-bike,
fact,
is it?
I'll ride up while you're going.
Is that how bad you are?
I'll be talking to you about cycling while you're suffering up the climbs, mate. Just spreading my knowledge of the sport while you're
That's all right.
dying up the hills.
When I get back to the cafe before you, I'll make some notes on cycling that you can read when you finally get there and join me for a
Again,
coffee.
I don't need them, though. I know everything, mate. Again, you can write them. I'll have the notes prepared for you that will fall out of my pocket as I leave you behind. You can catch them and then you can read them while you're climbing. One of the things we touched on last week, there was a lot of secrecy last week because maybe a bit of a peek behind the curtain. We got confirmation that Jan Fradden was injured. We got told that he was going to announce the injury on Friday, so we made the decision that we were going to record and then delay it until after. So normally we release the episode Friday afternoon Australia time, which would have been the morning on the 15th. So we thought we'll delay the podcast till after Jan's made his announcement so that we're not saying anything that we shouldn't be saying until he's had the chance to say it. He came out and said it that day, which meant we didn't actually have to delay the podcast, which was great. And in his social media post, he confirmed that the reason for his injury is that he's got a ruptured Achilles tendon, only a small one, but the risk for making it worse was too great because he can run for about an hour. And unfortunately, no matter how good you are, you're not going to run a marathon in an hour. So Jimbo, a week out, lots of conversations around, a lot of opinions about it. What are your thoughts a week after we found out?
Yeah, I was when the announcement came out. It came out a day early, didn't it? Because it surprised me. It surprised me that day, and I sent it to you overnight. I was pleased to see that he had acknowledged the reason for it.
Yep.
And given that as because he's pretty brutally honest, Jan Frodeno, isn't he? He doesn't hide things, and I was pleased to see that theme had continued. It's a real shame, but being a sensible athlete that he is, if you've got a tear in your Achilles is a I've had an Achilles injury in the past many years ago, and it's a difficult one to manage. So it's best, I think, that he settles down, rests up, and gets himself ready for Kona, because that's going to be the comeback, isn't it? And we don't want to see him do a half-baked St. George and then risk being out for the rest of the year.
So one of the things we touched on last week, and I want to lead this because we got a question this week on our a message that came through the MX Facebook page I thought was relevant. And we sort of touched on it last week. It was weird because we were trying to talk about him being injured without wanting to admit that he was injured. Was around the fact that, are we going to start seeing more of these injuries happen this year because of the high number of A races for athletes? Basically, we're going to see, look at Christian, for instance, Christian Alistair, 2 world championships in a sub event, plus 70.3 worlds, plus. Firstly, do you want to talk about that a little bit now that we can actually talk about the injury factor? And then secondly, what do you think about all these races being quite close together? Do you think we're going to see, like, are they going to have to start doing what Jan has done here and go, okay, I'm going to put all my eggs in a Kona, or I'm going to put all my effort in a sub, or I'm going to put all my effort in St. George, or like, how do you think this is going to impact things?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see, I think you're right. I think we might start seeing a higher attrition rate when it comes to injuries because of the intensity of this season, the way it's going. Because, the more, like, the emergence of the PTO, and then you've got World Championship events, and the more you start putting people into races that, for their own benefit, financial benefit, and making a living out of the sport, can't afford to miss, the more they're going to be doing these training blocks and then racing and training block and racing and training block and racing, as opposed to gearing it all around, a slow build with some peaks getting up to Kona. You're going to see more injuries, but I think within that, you're going to see an adaptation of sports science and injury management, where you're going to start seeing a new breed of professional come through who's better at managing that kind of process a little bit, and perhaps takes a bit more care. Not that Frodo doesn't, he's probably one of the best out there at this sort of thing. In terms of impact, you're going to start seeing when someone is injured, because of the dense nature of the year now, it's going to have more of an impact on your racing schedule, isn't it? Because, you're not only missing that race, but you're missing a training block for the next one, which is going to come up very soon. So I think we're going to start seeing people really, really sort of manage their bodies on a level that we probably haven't seen in the sport so far. What do you think?
I wanted to, not necessarily, because I sort of agree. I think we're just gonna. It's a risk, and I think that's probably why we are starting to see so many injuries. Like, you look at the DNS list, or the people who aren't going to be in St. George, I think are almost becoming bigger than the people who are going to be there, which is one of my concerns. But do you think the other factor that maybe is part of this is the fact that there are so many big races to potentially perform at this year, that it is making it easier for people to opt out? Where instead of, if for example, if there was only Kona this year, if there wasn't all the PTO races, if there wasn't sub, if there wasn't all these other things, there was one shot. Do you think that we would see people who maybe aren't racing in St. George definitely race? Like, do you think that psychology is changing things, where people are like, oh, I've got 2 or 3 other shots at it this year?
Maybe, but I think that's not a bad thing when you're trying to grow a sport and create a layer of professionals that can make enough money across a year to be professional.
If you're wanting to get the best race in each other, though, do you think that maybe what we're doing is that thing that we've always criticized races, where there are so many of these big races now, that we're actually going to start watering down the fields at each of them?
No, I don't think so, because the fields were watered down previously because it was such slim
Not at
pickings to
Kona.
make a living.
But
Not at Kona. I don't think Kona will ever be watered down.
Okay. But St. George, I guess that's what I mean, is that
St. George is a special case, bro. It ain't like they're putting St. George in every year and it's going to constantly have a second world championship. This is just a case of it's the 2021 one, and it's moved. So this year is slightly different.
But is it though? Because let's forget just the 2 Ironman. Suddenly we have the the PTO tour as well. All these races with huge prize purses. So that suddenly is going to have, and I understand at the moment they're the 100-kilometer distance ones, but they're talking about making longer ones too. Like, we acknowledge that to make this sport better and a better commercial prospect is we need to have the best race each other. That's what makes the races exciting. So what we're doing is we're suddenly having this influx of new people who are trying to put on big races that gets everybody there. At what point I guess the analogy is like, you know when people started to be able to book their hotel room on the internet. So you just go to Marriott.com, you book your hotel room, and then it was like Expedia and Booking.com and all these websites that suddenly were selling hotel rooms. So you'd find the cheaper one, and then there became so many of those races or those websites that then there was a level above, which was the website that compared all the rates on all the websites that had the rates. Do you think that what we're maybe going to get to the point with triathlon is that, and this could be a good thing where it means we might actually see that lower tier of pro triathlete that I don't think is a pro triathlete might go away. But do you think that we might then suddenly see that all these top level races start to suffer the same fate as the lower tier races because suddenly there's 6 of them rather than 2? Like, do you think that's a risk that could happen with this?
Yeah, it is. But within that little pyramid you just built, the sport has been elevated, the money has been increased,
Correct.
and the races that matter are still there. So that is an objective complete in itself.
But is the revenue or the money that they are using to increase it coming, because that's not coming from, like, that's not revenue. That's a rich guy is donating money that they're using as prize money. That's not.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. The funding stream needs to be secured, I'm sure, and I think someone like the PTO is on the case with that. But we'll see.
So your concern is if that doesn't dry out and suddenly all those races vanish, and then we've diminished. Like I'm just like, at some point, talk to each other maybe. Like I don't know. I'm thinking as we go at the moment because there's not that much news to talk about this week. But I don't know. I'm just like, maybe this is a negative because we've been so excited about this year that we've been talking about for fucking 3 years now, and now we're in it. And I'm like, the first race is already becoming a bit underwhelming. It's not going to be bad, but it's not what it was originally meant to be. Is that just going to continue this year?
I don't think so. I think we're yet to see it all play out. This is the first race of a stacked year, and I think that the professional athletes that race, the Ironman World Championship, the PTO Tour, the Collins Cup across the year, I think this slight push towards higher quality, higher paying races that means a little bit more of a dense season is going to see a new breed of athletes step up to that plate.
Cool.
Race, recover, race, recover, race, recover, race, recover. And if
I think it also shows that it can't be Ironman because it's not sustainable. Hey, that's why I think they're going to see that those middle distance races are the ones that are pushing.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think you could have the PTO Tour as iron distance races, and that's why they've gone for these 100-kilometer things.
James Bell, you put the next thing that we're going to talk about in the show notes this week, and I thought we're going to do it. We're going to start specifying our content a little bit towards this race in St. George. It is happening in 19 days, 18 days at this point. You put in the St. George Championships preview, mate. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a preview for the race that is coming. You put this in there. So let's have a bit of a chat about the race that is coming up in St. George, who we think is going to be. Every week until we have the race, we're going to give more predictions, see if our predictions have changed. But Jimbo, take the lead, mate.
Yeah, man. I got a lot of this from Triathlete websites. So I'll start with a small intro. Jan Frodeno's out. Patrick Lang is out. Tim O'Donnell is still gradually returning to racing after his heart attack and won't be on the start line. There are rumours of more DNSs to come. And there's also the COVID travel complications factor. So getting to the start healthy, fit, and ready to race is going to be the toughest part of the 21 Ironman World Championship held in 2022. They'll also tackle one of the toughest courses an Ironman world title has ever been contested over. While all the eyes are on the new faces to the game and highly anticipated Norwegian World Championship debut, don't count out the vets. Bart Arnott's and David McNamee have both been on the podium in Kona. Andy Potts will be starting his 12th Ironman world title. So I thought we'd have a quick chat through the contenders at this race, mate. Now, I think you picked Christian Bloomfield as your winner, didn't you, last week? Or did you pick Frodo?
I picked Frodo, and then I said once Frodo is out, I'm going with Gustav.
Did you say Gustav? Did you? Oh, let's start with Gustav then. Okay. What makes you think? What about Gustav Eden makes you think he's going to win this race?
Very strong bike rider. We saw him absolutely dominate on the bike on the 70.3 last year. I find it, just before we do that, what I did find interesting, so for people, if you want to find this, they've given the athletes star ratings on swim, bike, run. and they've given Gustav and Lionel and Christian 4 stars for the run, yet they've given Christian 5 stars for the swim. I'm like, the fuck are you doing, mate? Are you drunk? What? No, but okay. So Gustav Eden, to me, he is probably, like, again, this is a big part of this is talking with Mikkel Eden, who coaches Lionel and Gustav and Casper. Is he said that on a flat course it's Christian, on a hilly course it's Gustav, and I sort of tend to agree with him. I think that Gustav's a much smaller frame than Christian. He's a different style of racer. To me, Gustav isn't just the attack the whole time. He seems to have a bit more of the, I don't know. I don't think Christian's a dumb racer, but it's like Gustav to me seems more aware of what's happening around him. Like I look at that race that he did in the only Ironman that he's done in Florida, and he literally was like, "You go, Lionel. You set the pace, mate, and I'm just going to see how things go, and then I'm going to, when I'm feeling it, it's time to go. It's time to go." Like that to me is different compared to Christian, who just I'm just going to go as fast as I can and see what happens. Like that's to me the biggest difference between those two guys. And I think in this sort of race, because this is, well, it's originally a really stacked field. It's still quite a good field, but like you're going to have to play your cards a little bit differently because there's an Alistair Brownlee who's going to swim the way he's going to swim. There's Lionel with his run and bike the way it is. Like there's more in play than simply, it's not just going to be a time trial for Christian. I don't think it's going to be a race. And I think Gustav has a very good brain for when things are happening around him compared to Christian, who I think just likes to go to the front and push all the way. So that's to me.
Gustav's more of a sniper rifle, whereas Bloomfield's more of a blunderbuss. Eh?
Yeah, and like I genuinely think if it came down to a run over that distance, like again, it's hard to. They're so different, and it's like Christian's an incredible runner, but I just in my head, based on what I've seen them do at middle and long, like I know Christian when they've raced and there hasn't been mechanicals has beaten Gustav, but I looked at that. I just look at the way Gustav's been running lately. I just think I look at the course and it's based on nothing. I've never been to St. George. It's a Gustav course to me, and yeah, I think he's own, and that's the thing. Gustav's got this, and then he's not doing sub, and he said he's probably not doing Kona. Christian's got this and sub and Kona. Like,
do you think Christian runs the risk of getting de-linked in the swim, and then not being able to catch on the bike, and then just having the same sort of woes that he did at his last?
Not even maybe trying to catch up on the bike and doing what he has to get back on the bike, but then not having, because he won't have just rode the way he wanted to, like he did in Mexico. Then not being able to deliver the run that he delivered in Mexico because he had to dig deeper on the bike. And I understand that he's used to doing that at short course, but this isn't short course. This is, it's an Ironman, and he can't race the same way that he raced. He can't race the same way that he raced Mexico because it's not a time trial. It's a race. It's a world championship race, and everybody now knows to look out for Christian and Gustav, and they're going to come up with strategies to try to neutralize them. And that's a very different.
But are approach. They though? Are they going to talk?
Mate, they fucking better be. If they don't, they might as well just fuck off. Like if they are not going out there with a plan to beat these boys, they should retire. Like just get out of here, guys. If you think you don't have to have it, if you do not know who the main people that you need to come up with a strategy to beat, like get out. That is not professional race. That's why people saying Joe was saying no. I know what I need to do. I understand my weaknesses, and I know how to exploit their weaknesses to give me the best chance of winning. And that's what they need to do. And I think Gustav, based on nothing other than just the performances I've seen, I think he'll be more strategic in the response to that. Christian will be like, you want to push me? Fuck you, let's go. And he might burn out a little bit. Whereas I don't think Gustav would be happy to let Christian set the pace on the bike, for example, or whoever goes. He'll just sit there and that's I guess my thought process. And it's a hilly course, and yeah, that's sort of where I'm thinking.
Yeah, I must say I tend to agree with you on the Gustav having a smaller frame, having a slightly more being slightly more geared towards the hillier courses, but the thing with Christian, who when he just goes, he goes, and then he sees what happens. Often what happens is a good thing, and he's got it to see it through. So I like the dynamic between the two races and to see what happens between the two races. Now we got to throw Lionel Sanders into this.
Yes,
as well,
we do,
because he has got the similar sort of, in my mind, him and Christian on the run, they remind me of each other now.
Yep. Yeah, I know what you mean. Strength.
It's strength. It's like he's fighting the air around him. Do you know what I mean?
It works though, hey. Christ almighty, that Oceanside run was impressive. Like, fuck me.
And it's that Oceanside run, mate, that has really I mean, obviously, Lionel Sanders has been a great athlete for a long time, but that Oceanside run, I was just like, oh, mate, that's really
Can,
impressive.
can I ask about Lionel? Because again, despite what people think, I'm a huge Lionel Sanders. I think we both are. But
Yeah.
one of the things always with Lionel that makes me worried is that I think he lets people into his head a little bit too much. Like he's hyper aware of what other people are doing, and I think he can often like. I think that maybe he has a barrier about these Norwegians. In my head, I think that if he's on a run and he's got Gustav and Christian next to him, as much as he's going to say, "Nope, I think I can do it," I think there's a voice in the back of his head that's going to be going, "These guys are better than me." You
Do
hear
you
him
think that?
talking on
Do you
his.
think the fact that he's gone to be coached by their plays into that kind of
Yep.
subconscious? They're better than me, so I need to do what they're doing.
Because I've seen him say on some of his videos where he's like, "Man, these Norwegians just train so hard." Like, I, I think he's going to improve a lot as an athlete because working with Mikel and listening to the coach and following the. Like, I think we're going to see a much better Lionel than we've ever seen, and potentially a better athlete than these boys. I don't necessarily. I've always said that I think that Lionel's biggest disadvantage is he came to the sport a little too late. He hasn't gone through the process like the Christian, the Gustav. Like they've gone through that system and they're young. But I also just have this thought again, and this is just based on how I've seen Lionel Sanders react to being beaten or like, deferring to Jan and these sort of things, that if it comes down to it, he's going to think, well, Gustav literally ran away from me the last half in Mexico, in Florida, like it was easy. And we saw what Christian did. And he's very reactive to those Norwegians. That if it does come down to, I just wonder whether he's going to go, fuck these guys, I've got them. Or if he's going to think, shit, what are they like? Maybe he's going to overthink it a little bit. That's probably my biggest concern with Lionel. And we've just not seen him have that. He absolutely doing the right thing back in that run. But again, this is a proper stacked Ironman field with some of the best cyclists in the sport too. And if he gets left behind, the gap could suddenly become
I love to
big.
see the confidence in his in his. I watched his post race briefing thing that he does, or rundown thing he did on YouTube, and it's nice to see him. You could see that he took something from that, and he was like, "Oh, I was on the run," and then suddenly I could see Ben. And it was like, "Wow!" And it's like he was
Yeah.
enjoying himself, and it's like, "Oh, mate, it's really good to see that again." Because I felt for a long time he felt like he was just trudging uphill, trying to find improvements or how to get better, and he's finally turned that corner. You say that that's your main thing that worries you about Sanders. The main thing that worries me about Sanders, man, is skills on the bike. And I don't
Okay.
mean being able to sit and punch out power, but watching that briefing, he was talking about a point where he couldn't adjust his tri suit because he had two bottles
Yeah,
in
I
his
remember that.
hands and stuff. And I'm like, mate, anybody who spends a lot of time cycling outside knows you just put your bottle
Bottle
in
in the
your
mouth.
mouth and you do your adjustments, and jobs are good. And I worry that these tiny little details, because he spends so long riding inside, are going to let him down, because
We we saw that at the
he's
tri
such a
battle.
powerful bike rider.
We saw that at the tri battle where you saw Jan, who was literally aero the whole time, didn't reach down for the water bottles, filled up the water bottle in his frame. Whereas Lionel was constantly reaching down, getting out of the aero position, having his drink, stretching out. Like, yeah, I think that's also that lack of. And again, he might have worked on that, but that is also, yeah, you're exactly right. I think that's a concern, is that he just doesn't have that same finesse or that
Mm.
same those. Again, the other thing to think about somebody like Christian and Alistair even is, I know how much work they've been doing in the background around aerodynamics and position and all that stuff for sub. And that's going to benefit them in St. George. Like these
Mm.
guys are becoming masters in aerodynamics for their sub 7 performance. And if they're going to go, well, I'm not going to do that in St. George because I don't really want to win St. George. Of course not. They're going to be all those aerodynamic learnings, their new bikes, all the stuff that we know that they're working on is going to be applied to St. George. And that's the other thing that is the great unknown, I suppose, is, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a final few percent that Sanders quite hasn't tapped into yet, and when he's relying on that run, and that run is stinging right now. But
It is, man.
he
It's
wouldn't have to lean on it quite as hard if he just made a few little adjustments. Now, again, on this list is Sebastian Kienle. We've already discussed Kienle a little bit, so I don't think we should go into him too hard because we kind of talked about him earlier. But it would be great to see him. I'd love to see him do something good at this race. I really would.
What about Sam Long?
Yeah, now they've got him as a wild card on this list, right at the bottom.
Yeah, I can see that.
Um, now,
That's why I said him, to be honest.
yeah, now I think he's a work in progress. I don't think he's a world championship winner yet.
Hey, stop. I'll ask the question I asked before then. If he was on the podium, would you be surprised?
No.
If he won, would you be surprised?
Yeah.
Okay.
You? Same questions to you.
I'd be surprised for both, I think, to be honest. And not that I don't think Sam Long is a great athlete. I think Sam is a fucking incredible athlete. But much like Lionel, I just wonder if he's there's that very, very select group that I consider like S tier athletes. They're your Christians, your Yarns, your Alistairs. And they've been doing it their entire life. They've been doing it since they were juniors. They've gone through the ITU. Some of them are still in the ITU. I just wonder whether Sam, and the other thing, Sam seems to be focusing, he's very, 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 very good at 70.3. And he's not bad at Ironman, but I just wonder if he has the same level at Ironman yet. Because he's young. He's very young.
Yeah, man. He's only
compared to those guys. Yeah, mate. Like that's the thing with Sam. Sam has got 15 years left, mate. Like he's got ages to hone it. But I do just think that to me, Sam, if he got on the podium, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I wasn't surprised when he got on the podium in St. George for the 70.3. I was a bit like, oh, okay. Like I didn't expect him to get on the podium, but I wasn't surprised that he was on the podium. And that'd probably be the same here. If he was on the podium, I wouldn't be like, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. If he won it, I think it would be. I'd be like, Jesus, okay, I did not see that coming at all. Much like with Jackson Laundry winning Oceanside recently. Great athlete. If Jackson had been on the podium, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Fuck me, I was excited that he won the thing. Like, you couldn't have... If somebody had to give me $1 million to 1, I would have gone, probably not. I'd rather save the dollar because I just don't think he's in no situation do I see Jackson Laundry winning that race. Not because he's not a good athlete. I just think there were guys who were better, and I was wrong. So, yeah, I don't think Sam, for me, is a winner yet.
And then Alistair Brownlee. What do you think about Alistair Brownlee's chance on this? The man has got the same star rating for the swim as Christian Blumenfeld.
I know, baffling. And then, like, again, if Ali is on, if Ali has cracked it, if that Oceanside thing was something specific, if he's worked this out, to me, he wins this race now. Like, he's Alistair fucking Brownlee, you know? Like, and I know that people, like, he hasn't got it and, like, joke about it. And it is a reality. Like, he's had some very few lessons sees at what Kona was bad, and then anyway. If he's worked it out, and I think he is, if he hasn't already, he's getting close to it. I would not be surprised to see him like on Alistair Brownlee, who's worked out long course. It wins this race for me now. That's like, but I'm assuming that we're not going to see him probably on that one back in good stuff. But if he has, it's Alistair Brownlee every day of the week for me.
Yeah, I would really like to see him come out firing at this race, much like I want to see him come out firing at sub and really take the bull by the horns and make a race of it. Because, you know, so far we've seen him either do well at a race or we've seen him fail. We've never seen just like Alistair Brownlee fighting for second or Alistair Brownlee fighting for third. Do you know what I mean? We've seen him either capitulate or dominate, and I want to see what his kind of like, what his getting the very best out of himself on the day is.
I just want to see him win it, and then I can beat everybody. What did I say, baby? What have we been saying for like years at this point? Everyone's like, "Oh, stop talking about." He doesn't get it. Yeah, I hope so. And that's the thing. I like that approach. I like that he's risked it all. Like big swing. Let's either go for the win or fuck it. Who cares? Like, I like that. So,
So on the women's side, we got.
I hate their ratings, mate. I've looked at those women's ratings. They are fucking awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Two former champions, Olympic medalists, and countless podium finishes. Oh, I did a Tim Ford then and got my muddles worded up.
What the? Wait, I don't like this. I do not like that adjective.
And a number of hungry up-and-comers. For pros who qualified for this race in 2020-2021 and some all the way back in 2019, the start list is sure to continue changing. Pregnancies, injuries, COVID complications. With Lucy Charles-Barkley officially out with a hip stress fracture and a question mark in front of Miranda Carfrae, there are other women...
Facts.
Hey?
Sounds like you're getting a fax. And I was thinking, James Bell surely doesn't have a fax machine. I went, it's James Bell. He probably has a fax machine.
I must apologise. It's because we're recording a day early because you're going away. We're recording during my cleaning.
No, it's a fax machine, mate. Don't lie. It's your fax machine. It's your accountant sending you a paper invoice that you need to sign and fax back to them. That's what it is.
I have a telegraph system for that sort of thing out the front. Flags.
Bip, 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 bip.
So we'll start with Annie Haug. Now, she's been quiet of late. She's been quiet. That race in Lanzarote, she wasn't at her best. Kat obviously took the win.
Yep.
But you never know, man. With a run like she's got, if she
Correct.
can stay in the game, she doesn't have to be that far behind if she's on form on that run to bring it back. Now in Lanzarote, we didn't see, because in Lanzarote, Kat was quite a way ahead and Annie didn't run hardly anything into her. So if a run's not on form, she's beatable. But if that run's on form, she's stinging.
I think the problem that Annie has is that there's a lot of people in this race now that have a good run. Like it's not like she can just run through everybody, because there are people who aren't. Like I look at it and I worry that Annie's just going to be too far down on the bike, and that suddenly that gap is going to be too much to even Annie have. I mean, you don't know. Ironman is a completely different kettle of fish to what we saw in Lanzarote, but I just think that, yeah, like what her fastest run was only a few minutes faster than Kat's fastest run, and I think Kat is probably the best cyclist in this female sport at the moment. Like,
yeah. National
so
champion.
again, Annie Hager, she won it. Wouldn't be surprised if she's on the podium. Wouldn't be surprised. Do I think she will? Probably not. She's probably not. Not that she's done anything bad. Like again, I said it. I forgot about that Roth performance. That Roth performance last year. Even if it was a legitimate, if they hadn't shortened the course by 10K, I think she would have broken Chrissy Welland's record that year.
I mean, do you think COVID came at the wrong time for Anna Haug? Really?
Yeah, definitely.
At the age
39
of 39
years old now.
Yeah.
Just been doing it a long time.
Lost those 2 years where she was, really at the best. So it's a shame, but I agree with you on that. Now, Daniela Ryf, mate. Do you think she can spring a surprise?
Do you know what I think is going to happen? I have been backing Danny every single race for like a year now, and every single time she's let me down. So I'm assuming that when I finally go, nah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 12 times, shame on me, big time. I'm hoping that when I say, nah, she's not going to do it this time, then she'll do it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, oh no, just to prove you wrong, Tim, I'm actually still incredible. Again, Daniela Ryf, if she's on, is the best. Like, she's the best long course athlete, I think, to have done this sport. I just don't think she's on anymore, mate. I just think that every race I've seen her at, like, she just doesn't look like Daniela Ryf. She's just missing. I don't know what it is. And I don't know, maybe it's the same as Jan, where she's all about Kona, or maybe she likes the fact that it's not a Kona. Maybe there's a course that suits it. It could go either way. She could be right up there. She could just be in the middle of the pack doing not much. And I just, at this point, I don't know, mate, to be honest. I don't know.
I agree with you. Missing is a very good word to use, because it's kind of like, I keep expecting to see Daniela Ryf of old race, and she's constantly not there. And I'm like, mate, where are you?
I can't remember. Like,
yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'd love to talk to Daniela and find out what's going on, because I kind of don't like to see it. Like, to me, this is, if she's done, just, that's it. It's like, you kind of want to see the sick puppy be put down sort of thing, and that sounds very harsh. That's not what I mean, but it's very hard for me to watch Daniela go through this, because she is such a good athlete. Like, watching her get passed by Lucy at the Collins Cup last year, I didn't enjoy that moment, mate. Like, that wasn't this is exciting moment. That was a like, Danny, man, like.
Yeah, it's like retire at the top kind of attitude. But, she's only 34, and she's still got, it's not like whatever is responsible for the dip in form, it may not be a permanent thing. And I'd love to see her come out and have a good race here. It'd be great.
Same. Oh, mate, nothing would make me, again, if she won it, I'd be so happy, because I think Daniela Ryf is incredible. But we just haven't seen it even in 2019. She got the mystery bug. So it's been 4 years since she's won an Ironman World title.
Which doesn't feel like it should be, does it?
No, that's what I mean. Like, and I think that's the thing that we talk about. Alistair Brownlee having the proof that he's earned the right to be considered, and I think that's the thing with Daniela, is because of what she's done, she earns the right to be in the conversation. And I think we're finally at the point where, is she, like, it's 4 years? Like, That's why I say I'm not expecting her to win, and then she'll probably go and win it and be like, "Yep, Tim, fuck you, count me out finally." So
Yeah, my headphones cut out while you were saying whatever you were
it was the
saying.
best
So
stuff ever. It was the
all I
best stuff ever.
all I saw was your face moving.
All we need to then do is let's talk about Laura Phillip, mate.
Yeah, Laura Phillip. Now, she's well up there, isn't she?
Yeah, mate. She's one of the two winners. I think she's one of the two people I'd pick for the win at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, she's well up there. She's on form. She's
the form athlete at the moment, I think.
She is, and she's leading the rankings. So I would not be surprised to see her competing very, very heavily with another athlete for the win on this race. I think, I just think she's really coming into form. She's really showing strengths, and I've got a lot of time for her as an athlete.
Yeah, again, if she won it, wouldn't be surprised if she's podium. I actually would be surprised if she wasn't on the podium. That's probably that's the flip of it. She's an athlete that if she wasn't on the podium, I'd be like, oh, what happened? Because I'm really expecting there to be. To me, there's two athletes, so I think it's gonna be between the two of them, and it's gonna be a fascinating race because they're both very good runners. And the other one is obviously Kat Matthews. To me, Kat is also the absolute inform athlete at the moment. I touched on it earlier. I think she's got the best bike in the sport at the moment.
Especially with the announcement that she's going to be doing sub 8 as well. It's gonna bolster this attempt at St George. I see very good things for both these two athletes over the next 12 to 24 months.
Can I ask, is it Laura Phillip's first Ironman World Champ? No, she fourth place at the last one, so she's done one before. Okay, whereas Kat, my only concern with Kat is that this is her first Ironman World Championships. And that's purely the statistics. The statistics are that it is very unlikely that you win on debut.
But it's everyone's first St George Ironman World Championship.
Of course, mate. That's not me saying that it's just that that's like it's housekeeping at this point, basically, isn't it? That is a consideration. I think she's got the best bike run in particular at the moment, and her swim ain't bad. I think that I really expect Kat to do something really, really. It's to me, it's those two. I'd be surprised if either of them aren't on the podium, to be honest, and I wouldn't be surprised if either of them won it.
I agree completely.
Did you see Macca picked her? I thought that was again. Obviously, Chris helped. She was one of the choices for sub, but like genuinely, you can say what you like about Chris. He fucking knows what he knows a lot about the sport, and I pay a lot of attention at like his sort of picks. And what he was saying, I was like, I tend to agree with him a lot about Kat. Like, I think she's this could be. It's going to be epic. I'm really excited to see how she goes because I think Kat's a fantastic athlete with a huge future in front of her.
Totally. Sky Monch as well. She's there. I'd like to see her do well because she's lovely and she's a very, very strong contender. So I'd like to
podium
see
for Sky. That's I'm calling it. Sky gets a podium. Come on, Sky.
I want to see Sky on the podium as well.
I hope that interview she did with Kat on our podcast fired her up a bit, and she's like, "You think you're going to get away from me? I'm going to show you."
Yeah, totally. So go after it, Sky. Go on, you got this.
Fantastic, Jimbo. What's the next part of the show?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO.
What are we doing, mate? What's happening this week?
Well, I thought we'd just have a quick glance through. I had a quick chat with the PTO this week to see if there was any announcements or anything coming. And there's some announcements coming next week about things, but we won't talk about that yet. But in the meantime, there aren't any sort of announcements this week. So I thought we'd just have a quick go through their schedule for the year of what is open and what is not, and what's yet to be announced.
An ad. PTO, we're doing an ad for the PTO, basically.
We're basically doing an ad for them, aren't we, mate? Yeah, sort of unpaid advertising. The Canadian Open is their first event in Edmonton, 23rd to 24th of July, and there's age group racing at all of these events. Then they've got the Collins Cup, which the thing has moved off my... help me. The Collins Cup is in Bratislava, Slovakia on the 20th to 21st of August, and that's going to be a different format. Obviously, it's going to be the same format that we saw last year. Then they've got the US Open in Dallas on the 17th, 18th of September. And coming in 2023, there's going to be an Asian Open and a European Open. Now, all of the tour races are run over a total distance of 100 kilometers, made up of a 2K swim, 80K bike, and an 18-kilometer run. With the Collins Cup is obviously, as we saw last year, the team event over 100 kilometers, where the European, US, and international athletes compete in 12 one-to-one matches. And there's age group racing throughout. They've opened every race that's open has an age group racing option, and the social referral rebate program, which gives 100% of your PTO tour entry back if you refer to 3 other athletes who also register for the same event.
Which one do you want to do? Of those 3 that they've got at the moment, Dallas, Edmonton, and Bratislava, which of the 3 venues appeals to you the most? Because it's easy for me.
I want to race the Collins Cup.
Interesting.
Yourself?
Dallas, baby. I want to. I think
go
that's
to
the race.
Dallas.
I'm like,
You want to get
hell
yourself a cowboy hat, do you?
No, my brother, who's a pilot for Qantas, literally goes to Dallas all the time. He's like, mate, Dallas is fucking awesome. So that's the one that I was like, hell yeah. And again, racing in the US, mate, is the best. It's like my favorite place to race. It's so good.
Why?
Because the race I did had 3,500 competitors, and the whole because I was at the front of the race as I was on the way back. Everyone's like, you got this. He's just up the road. Keep going. It was phenomenal, mate. I felt like a superstar. It was the best. So I hated riding my bike in the days leading up to the race, but racing in America was unbelievable because they're so friendly and positive and just like, mate, it was so good. It was such a good experience. And then I had a big greasy American meal after the finish. So that was pretty epic too.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I obviously like to race, but having been at the Collins Cup last year, I enjoyed the setup so much. And
I guess how's it going to be how's that going to work? Is it just going to be a team event for the age groupers, or is it just the standard race on the course?
It'll be a standard race the day before. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fine.
And
I'm super keen for that. We're definitely there this year. We've already been speaking to the PTO about we'll be doing some stuff in the lead up to the events. We'll be there for the week or the days leading up to it, which is going to be cool. I obviously couldn't go last year, but I'm definitely there this year. I'm really excited about that.
Imagine if the world steps in and some reason stops you going again this year. How annoyed would you be,
mate? I'll have to. Yeah, don't put that negative juju my way, mate. That's come on. What are you doing to me?
I felt really bad for you last year because it was a good weekend.
It was fucking brutal. It was brutal. You were sending me those bloody messages. Anyway, we're gonna get some MX people because you get the discounts. So we'll power up our community. Come join us at some of those races. It'll be epic. Talking of that, if you want to come and join us at the race and you want to be part of the community, head to mxendurance.com/podcast where you can sign up for our podcast membership for as little as $3.40 a month. Gets you a suite of benefits, including the bonus monthly episode that we record with Chris. I'm going to do that very soon because I'm with Chris this weekend for the Futures Camp. Gets you partner discounts, access to a whole bunch of things. It is a good time. Helps support the podcast. It's going to get us to St. George. That's why we're going to St. George, because of people who have signed up for our podcast membership. We appreciate it, and that's why we're going to get that content to you guys. We'll probably be doing some live stuff in the community just for our members while we're there, which will be good. And again, great way to help us keep doing what we're doing at the podcast. Again, we're just here trying to make it easy for people to follow the news in the sport. And if this is a way that you are able to keep up to date with what is happening in the world of triathlon, then head to mxendurance.com/podcast. Jimbo, where do they go to find out other stuff?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. I got 2 new followers this week, mate. I'm up over 600 now. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. Really helps the show out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend. Help us grow. If you got any suggestions, comments, or criticisms, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Jimbo, I saw that we skipped over the arena game stuff, and that's because I'm sick of it and I want to get out because it's getting late. Jess Lemont's racing. That's the big thing. Jess Lemont will be there, which is exciting. It's good. Hopefully it'll be better than last time. I guess we'll find out. We'll talk about it next week. James Bale, not long till we're in St. George, baby. A pleasure as always.
Cheerio.